Welcome to the Disability Channel. I'm Jay Stoyan and you're watching a special presentation. This is a special presentation taken off from our May 17th event, I Am campaign, all about education and awareness. With me on a panel, I have four great guys. I have Sujit to my left, Warren, Miko, and Zane. Now, all our panel members were part of our program, either our youth program, graduated like Zane over here, or our disability employment programs like Sujit, Miko, and Warren. So what I'd like to do is just let everybody introduce themselves along with their disability or their program that they entered. So Sujit, please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. Hey everybody, my name is Sujit K. Reddy. I am the host of Keep Pushing, and my disability that I have, that I was diagnosed with at birth, is spina bifida and hydrocephalus.
Thank you. Warren, yourself now? Tell us about your disability. And Warren is he's a new member to our team, so he's going to be hosting his own show come, let's say, I would say probably late November. So until that time comes, Warren, if you just want to share with our viewers your disability, and then we can just move on to Miko and then Zane too.
Hi everybody, my name is Warren. I'm a guest here today and I appreciate this opportunity to be with you guys. Awareness of disabilities is a big thing that needs to be sent out there message-wise. My disability has been pretty much undiagnosed most of my life. It's a conjunction of a connective tissue disorder as well as an autoimmune system disorder as well.
Thank you, Warren. Miko?
Hi. My name is Miko. I'm the host of Hockey Hat Trick with Miko and Cliff. My disability is Asperger's syndrome, also known as a high-functioning form of autism.
Thank you. And Zane?
Yeah, I'm Zane. I don't have a disability, but I've been involved with TDC behind the scenes and not in front of the camera, but and yeah, I've also been in a youth program for Employment Ontario.
Tell us a little bit about the youth program, Zane, before we get into the other gentleman here.
It was a program to help kids that were just out of school who really didn't have a direction or an idea of what they wanted to go with life, and it gave them the opportunity to work with different organizations. I worked for different advertising agencies and things of that nature, and afterwards I came in and I worked with you guys at the Disability Channel, and yeah, it just gives people who don't necessarily have a direction or a place to go or feel like they have opportunities, it gives them the opportunities that they.
That's a great thing. I do want to let people know that we are shooting this live. So for our viewers or our audience members, if they want to Facebook this live, we would appreciate that, as this is a big day for awareness. And again, the reason we're having this show with our great panel here is just to sort of educate, to share, to get rid of the bugaboos, to say, like Zane, for instance, he doesn't have a disability, but we want to get different perspectives. So again, these gentlemen are part of our programs, the employment programs. You can find more information on our website, thedisabilitychannel.ca, along with is because we are here to offer support, to offer education, and to just grow the workforce, because there's so many people in the disability community that just want the opportunity. And we're here to say, we want to give you that opportunity. So again, what I want to talk about today is some of the things that, some of the stigmas, and I'll start first with you, CG. What are some of the big stigmas that you find in society that people sort of misguided or they assume?
Sure. I think one of the biggest assumptions that I've had to deal with personally, being a person with physical disability and in a wheelchair, is that they assume that because you are in a wheelchair, not only do your legs not work, but your mind and your heart don't work, in the sense of you can't think for yourself and you don't have any feelings as such. And it's been a varied different levels in different situations, but I find that to be the most biggest stigma, and sometimes it's hard to get over, and sometimes it's a lot easier, because then you understand, hey, they may not have the awareness, or they may not have the people with disabilities around them, either directly or indirectly. I find that if you have a person with a disability directly related to you or indirectly related to you, you have a better awareness and understanding. But for those who don't, it's a different story.
And I think that's a great point of view, and no one can probably tell it better than you, because again, you are in a wheelchair, right? So you feel you come across different scenarios than say Warren. Now, Warren, yourself with your disability, what are some of the things that people assume which they probably shouldn't?
Well, frankly, I also use a wheelchair a lot. I use it for distance as well, and I spent most of my high school life and beginning years in a wheelchair as well. But I use the crutches too, and it's the smallest little step, that nobody can assume what a person with disability can or cannot do, and that's what I always say, because we have something that limits us, and we're born with this strength within us. So sometimes people see us doing things that are strong, and let's say I'm going upstairs, for example, right? I'm walking up a staircase, or you're rolling down a hallway really fast, or dancing, or whatever it is challenging. We push ourselves to do things, but nobody really knows how much pain we're going through at the moment.
Right.
So if there's a flight of stairs there, for them to see you go up those stairs, they don't know what you're going through at that moment, because we're quiet about it, right? And we just do it because we want to push ourselves. We want to. It's not just inspiring ourselves. It's not just inspiring other people. It's giving other people the permission to do the same. So we inspire other people with disabilities by doing that, pushing ourselves.
That's wonderful.
But then people assume that, he can do the stairs. He can walk upstairs, or that they assume that helping you go up the stairs is going to be easier. Meanwhile, it's more painful.
That's a great point. Now, Miko, let's talk a little bit about you and your dad, because I know you guys have such a great dynamic. I know how much you love your dad and how much he cares for you and takes care of you. So tell me about that dynamic between you and your family.
I describe myself as a family man. Family's always been number one to me. There's been, times where there's been stuff going on with my family where we've kind of been there for each other when we were down. For instance, this year I've lost my two favorite uncles I was closest to relationship-wise in the span of 4 to 5 months, and it's been a very devastating year for me. Death is never easy to deal with, and also I just had the 5-year anniversary of my grandfather, who I was extremely close to, passing away. And these 5 years have just been, honestly, without my grandfather, the most difficult and hardest to deal with 5 years I think I've ever had in my life.
Well, you got a good family here, so. But I want to ask something else, because I know we were talking off camera, and you have such an outgoing personality. You're always so positive. You love to get involved. What are some of when you meet people, what are some of the things that, first off, people don't understand about you? Like they assume, or they just take advantage of it, or something like that.
They take advantage of my kindness. They pretend to be my friend, and it's not cool to do that. And also, just the way that they assume that I'm stupid or dumb, or I've been bullied by not only fellow schoolmates, but I've been bullied by teachers in the public school system, and that's something that's not talked about or heard enough about in the media. There's been teachers who've locked students in classrooms, who've restrained students against their will, and no action has been taken. There was a very ugly incident with me at my first high school, which led to some very ugly stuff. I'm not going to get into that, but I felt I was treated very fairly and very unjust, and no justice was ever done to the people who truly deserve to have justice done to them. And I truly felt like a victim there. And I'm not from Canada. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, and despite me living in Canada and sounding Canadian, I don't consider myself to be Canadian. I consider myself to be South African, and I've always, even though there's been many Canadians who've been so kind to me, I've always felt like an outsider looking in from day one when I first touched down here in Canada.
Okay, thanks for sharing that with me. I know you're a really big advocate, especially for the autism community. I know you're just gangbusters, so we cannot thank you enough for that. Zane, let's talk about a little bit different perspective. Like you said earlier in the show, that you do not have a disability, but you're around, well, you're part of our team, so you're around us all the time, and you see it. But give us your perspective. What were you thinking maybe before you came into our world? Not that you didn't know before, but before you came in and now.
Well, for me, it was obviously like, you know, growing up, disabilities, they don't, as much as you see like quote unquote regular people walking around, you know, you see disabilities, and a lot of times you'll see it like, oh, somebody in a wheelchair, you'll see it every once in a while, or somebody who, you know, has a walking stick and they're blind, or, you know, you hear about somebody, it's like, oh, my kid has autism or whatever it may be. And like everybody I feel like has somebody like affected, but I think for most people, we don't either see it as much as we see other types of people or whatever it might be. And so to me, it's something that I never really paid much attention to. I never really put much thought to. You know, you see a person with a wheelchair, okay, they have a person with a wheelchair. It is what it is. I don't know what he has. I don't know. You know, if I were to see Sujit on the street, I wouldn't know what he has. I wouldn't pay much attention to it. I would just be like, yeah, it's him, he's doing his thing, he's whatever. And so to me, I never really paid much attention to it or have much knowledge or awareness of it. So, you know, when I did start working with the Disability Channel, you know, I started realizing that there was a lot more to it, and that there was a lot more specificity, and there was a lot more different sort of aspects of it that I didn't really understand. There's a lot of times that I would talk to people, I'd realize, wow, there's like disabilities that, you know, aren't just physical. You know, it's very easy to be like, to look at somebody like Suji, for example, and say, okay, you know what? You know, he's clearly disabled. He's in a wheelchair. Of course he's disabled. But, you know, you see someone like Miko, you might not see that or understand that about them. So that's something I've definitely learned from my experience.
That's a great point, and it is, because a lot of times, a lot of people, just as many people probably have invisible disabilities as exterior disabilities. So, like myself, I have a form of malaria, which is familial Mediterranean fever. So it's internal, right? So people might think, well, Jay he's good to go. And yeah, sometimes I am good to go, but then other times I'm down and out. What I wanted to talk to is, so when people, how come we get this stigma in the disability community that because you're disabled, people have to be outward nice to you? Do you find that, Suji? Like people are just overly nice to somebody who's disabled. I never really got that. I'm not saying you don't be respectful,
Right.
and helpful, but I don't have to agree with your opinion because you're disabled.
Right.
But do you find a lot of people they won't go that far?
Again, it's very situation specific, but I've had the experience that, for the most part, growing up in Toronto, that I get respect when I give respect, and I think that's the same thing with everybody. Do I get people who go out of their way and get over enthusiastic about pleasing me? Yeah, sure I do.
Yeah.
I
I think that can be a bad thing.
No, it can't. It's better than being
The other way.
treated negatively, right? But I find it's a generational thing too. So folks who have been in our generation, like you were mentioning, that we've grown up with people with disabilities in school, integrated into our school system. So we're more used to it than generations like our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's generational. And with our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, I find with them, they're the ones that are more to
You're super kind. Or?
be super kind and
Yeah.
super sensitive about, we don't want to upset him and this
Yeah.
and that, right? Because I've done a little bit of traveling as well, and I mean, when I go to places like India, for example, it's a different situation because their understanding around people with disabilities and accessibility and all that is different, and so.
In what way? Is it better? Is it worse? Are they behind times? Ahead of times?
Okay. I find that I've been able to go there and travel on my own and such with my family because I can transfer my wheelchair folds, so that's great. But for a person who has, say, who's quadriplegic,
Okay.
in an electric chair, electric scooter, much more difficult because they can't get into vehicles like I can get into. So their transportation is limited because they wouldn't have like a wheel trans, like how Toronto does,
Yes.
or that kind of a service or system that takes a person in a wheelchair door to door,
Okay.
type of thing, right? So, but in terms of people, like, you know, you go out on the street, you go into a public place, if you're a person with a disability in a wheelchair, and you get like stares and you get looks, and you get people talking to whomever you're with, not
Yeah.
to you, to ask them what I want.
Ha!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A little crazy.
It's there. Whereas here, you don't get that. I'll go into a store, and they'll serve you. They'll sir, what is it that you need? What would you like, and so on and so forth. Right.
This is great perspectives. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. Do tweet us at JStoyan, at the Disability Channel. You can find our Facebook page, the Disability Channel. We'd love to hear your comments. Right now, I believe people are Skyping us live on Facebook, so we really appreciate the live stream. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with the Disability Channel.
I'd like to share with you today new and exciting technology in wound care and a revolutionary way for you to treat your patients. My name is Lawrence Rinke, inventor at New Bandage Technology. Let's take a closer look. New Bandage is a one-piece, mold-injected thermoplastic elastomer that holds sub-bandages and other medical devices in place without the use of tapes, adhesives, or fasteners. New Bandage is not absorbent. It's hand washable, it's sanitizable, it's fast, reliable, and easy to apply. New Bandage is an excellent strategy for burns, skin grafts, wound care, and perfect for our elderly and our children. There's no fasteners, no buckles, no tapes, no adhesives, there's no latex, there's no discomfort, and it's waterproof. Unlike traditional cloth bandages that trap body heat and perspiration, New Bandage allows for excellent airflow with easy access and visibility to the affected area. And it's perfect for patients who have vascular and sensitive skin issues.
We always recommend to use a non-adherent cotton dressing between the new bandage and the skin for additional comfort and moisture control. So easy to apply. New Bandage is a padded bandage system. Clean and dress affected area. Hold new bandage vertically and open the top end with both hands. Roll the bandage up, creating a donut shape. Stretch the bandage from the center and place over affected area. Roll the bandage over the dressing. Adjust the bandage so the air holes are equal in size and shape. Ensure that New Bandage is centered over the affected area. New Bandage, the ideal choice.
I invite you to visit us at our website at newbandage.com.
Welcome back. I'm Jay Stoyan, and you're watching a special presentation by the Disability Channel. It's all about awareness and education today. We're here with 4 panel members. It's a great show. I'm learning so much, from personal experiences. So we talked a little bit about the personal life and the, sort of like the causes and the effects of having a disability and the abilities, your limitations, which are none. And but what we want to do is move it a little bit along and talk policy. And when I'm talking policy, I don't mean we're not going to get into the weeds. It's just we all love our country, and we're going to talk about Canada now. So I'm going to start with Zane. Zane, what do you think that right now Canada is sort of missing the mark when it comes to disabilities? And this is coming from your perspective, so it's going to be totally different from the other 3 panel members.
Well, I mean, I think for me, obviously, like I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not disabled, so I don't have a specific gripe or issue with how they're treating certain disabilities, but I mean, it's very, very clear to see, you know what I mean? It's clear. You hear it in the news all the time. You see it all the time. It's very, if you look at it, like after working with the Disability Channel and working with people with disabilities, like after you look at it and you look at it from the perspective of somebody with a disability, as somebody who's able-bodied, it's like you can really see it. Like it's very easy to see that, like, oh, that's a store that Sujit probably couldn't get in. That's you know what I mean? Something like that. Or I remember one time I was waiting for the bus and there was an older gentleman. And he wasn't a disabled necessarily, but he had a walker, and he's like, when do you know the next bus is coming? I'm like, oh, I think they canceled that today. And he's like, he talked to me about how he had to take a bus. His home station didn't have a wheel-trans, didn't have an elevator, didn't have anything of that nature. So he had to take a bus to go 5 stations away just to get onto a wheelchair accessible thing. And that to me just as a normal person, it's like, wow, like I just go straight to my station, I hop on a train and I go.
That's
but it's
huge.
like for him, it's like, and he's an older gentleman. He doesn't have, it's tiring for him to do that. So it's like it's very easy to see. I think it's very also easy for us to not pay attention to that because we worry about the bigger political issues and stuff like that. But you know, we have to remember that these are issues as well.
That's a great point. Miko, what would you like to share? What do you think Canada is missing right now?
Honestly, there's a lot of policies that that need to be fixed. Like, I work for another amazing disability rights organization on a volunteer basis. Eventually, I'm hoping to get hired. The Ontario Autism Coalition, we're affiliated with them. They do amazing work, and I often see people post in the group, "Oh, there's nowhere to change my older child's diaper because like it's not considered publicly appropriate to do that." But then there's no changing station in the washroom that's big enough or strong enough to hold their child, and putting their child in a safety risk. And also, you know, there needs to be every TDC station, in my opinion, also needs to be wheel-trans accessible, like Zane was just talking about with that older gentleman, because that to me is really like unacceptable. And you see, like you hear out in the news like all the time. Also, like Zane was saying, how the police and first responders don't have any training on how to deal with people with disabilities, and you often hear about them, whether it be mental, whether it be physical. They show up to a thing and they don't know how to deal with the person's like super aggressive or wielding some sort of weapon, which I don't think they're actually going to use. I don't know, but I don't think they would. And the police end up like tasering them or shooting them and killing them or seriously injuring them to the point where in the hospital, where they would end up in the hospital and be in like a coma because of how bad their injuries, or permanently disabled even further than they were before.
Okay, that's a good point actually. That's a good point. And yourself, Suji, what would you add?
So I want to start off by saying I am a proud Canadian. I was born and raised here in Toronto, specifically East General Hospital. Shout out to you guys for keeping me alive. And I've seen a lot of systemic problems, and I think, you know, again, living in a first world country with so much that we have, like I explained before, I've done some traveling, so I've seen how people with disabilities in other countries are treated or not treated. And so we have problems here in Canada that are systemic, that can be fixed, but there needs to be a little bit of work. So for example, like what was brought up was our transportation system. You know, we are considered a world-class city in Toronto. So is New York City, but New York City had their transportation system fully accessible 20 years ago.
That's a good
Why
point.
can't we do that?
That's a good
Right?
So accessibility, we
Yeah,
want
that's one
transit.
thing, you know, and just transit's the bigger one for me, and also recreation.
Well, mention to me, we were talking off the air when you were at a location and you
Yeah.
went to the washroom.
Right. So
Just finish that story.
So, you know, people talk about accessibility, but then you see certain places where, you know, for a washroom, for example, you know, they don't have a push button to get into the washroom, but then inside the washroom it's beautiful. It's got like a nice big stall and the whole deal, right? It's good. But then you go out of the stall and then the sink is higher up. So how can I use the sink on my own? It's not so much about accessibility, it's more about independence. Because I think it's assumed that people with disabilities are people who need this kind of stuff, will always have somebody with them. It's not geared into people's heads that, oh, people with disabilities can do their own thing and go out on their own and you know, have their own whatever they want, life,
right?
Exactly, yeah.
That's a
So-
great point.
So I think there's that issue and situation going on in our particular
Excellent.
neck of the
That's
world.
that's a great point of view.
Yeah.
And Warren, yourself?
Personally, I'm really proud of Canadians, of Canada's OHIP system. That, you know, just the fact that, you know, a majority of things are covered. You know, there are the limits, right? And then there are the lineups in the hospitals and those kind of things that, you know, judging an injury from an illness or whatever's going on, you know, and the big lineups and all that stuff could be worked on. There has to be a solution somewhere in that, especially also with the funding for nurses. Nurses are the ones that hold up the hospital. You know, I'm sure many of you have been in hospitals and know that it's the nurses that run the show, right?
That's right.
But they themselves are being cut, and you know, it's like, you know, just the fact that, you know, there's no toothbrushes available for patients that are there by themselves, you know, was something that was shocking to me, you know, so being there for a while.
That's a great point. I love the old hip conversation. I think that's great. I'm just going to add this. I think it's changing, but for some reason, when they were passing policies 20 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, the people that were doing the surveys, doing the research, writing the policy, they were not disabled. They're not disabled. So it's like, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you're not disabled, so you're kind of guessing. Instead of having people on the panel or on the policy board who are disabled and from all different angles of being disabled, quadriplegic, paraplegic, autism, brain injury, those people need to be on the panel because they live it every day. And like what Suji said, great fully accessible washroom, but there's no magnet on the outside of the door. And I'm sure that was an honest mistake, but if you were designing that washroom, you probably wouldn't have missed that. Right? Okay, let's leave it now. We don't want to browbeat, so let's mention one thing that you love about the disability programs in Canada, besides OA. Is there another one that you think is good that you would say bravo? Or one thing that you notice? Want to come back? Think about it. What do you think? One good thing.
I think for me, I don't directly deal with a disability, but a lot of people would notice about me. My mother is disabled. She has a mental disability. So for me, it was like it's very good for me to look at what's happening with her and look at the coverage she's getting and the attention she's getting. And again, like it's not something where if you saw her walking down the street, you would be like, oh, no, obviously she's very, she's disabled. So to see her get the coverage and the care and the help that she needs is really important to me as a son.
Great. Miko, what do you think one good thing Canada is? Or just name one.
Honestly, I think that like ODSP is such a good place, and then we have amazing organizations like the Disability Channel, Ontario Autism Coalition, and Jake's House, who all advocate for people with disabilities.
Okay. And yourself, Suji?
So like I mentioned before, I was born and raised here, and I've always been a member and a part of Variety Village.
Okay. Oh, great.
So
Great facility.
everyone knows about
Archie?
it.
Yeah.
Archie's awesome. Archie Allison.
Yeah, Archie's tops.
And my frustration or hurt around that is that it's great. It's in Scarborough. You can get to Wheel-Trans. It takes me an hour and a half to get there on Wheel-Trans from Toronto. The thing is, why don't we have more such locations like that, whether it's in Toronto or Mississauga or wherever? And why isn't that model used in other cities across Canada and across the world?
That is shocking that there is only one Variety Village.
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
it?
for the world.
Yeah, that's shocking because
Like,
it's a wonderful facility.
Yeah.
I've been there many times, covered the Paralympics there.
And it's about people's health and people's recreation, and often you find people that get together there for that, but then beyond that, just socialization and that kind of thing. So it's always been a good place, but we need more of those.
That's great. I think what we're going to take another break. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap the show. I have a few little secrets I want to say after, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the Disability Channel. Welcome back to the show. I'm your moderator, Jay Stoyan. I want to thank our guests today. Before I dismiss the show and we end it for the day, I want to ask the guys one word to describe the Disability Channel. Go, Zane.
Family.
Miko?
Amazing.
Suji?
Empowerment.
Warren?
Opportunity.
And I would say opportunity also. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank our team. I want to thank the guys on the panel here. You can catch them. They're going to have their own shows. They already have their own shows. Do check them out. We would love to hear your comments. Again, I'm Jay Stoyan. You're watching the Disability Channel. We'll see you next time.